Welcome back. Well, some tourists are trimming their bucket lists on trips, happy to just relax and plan not much of anything. Those in the travel industry say the do-nothing vacation is also gaining a lot of traction. Wendy Gillette gives us an inside look on the new trend.
At the Intercontinental Maldives, private pools, solitary stretches of sand, and the turquoise water of the Indian Ocean coax travelers to surrender to the scenery.
You can come and just reconnect with yourself and be surrounded by nature and don't feel like you have to do something. You don't have to go and explore.
Those who do venture out are often rewarded, snorkeling among a squadron of manta rays or discovering hideouts on the private island to lounge around. The simple strategy of letting your whims rule the day is becoming more popular. Rest and relaxation has increased as a primary motivation for traveling, up to 21% in February compared to 17% in September, according to market research firm Longwoods International. It's partly why more all-inclusive resorts are opening, including Herodance Ara, also in the Maldives, where stays have stretched out post-pandemic.
They want to come for long holidays and they want to take a real good break from their work life or busy life.
Executive chef Emila Silva offers cooking classes and a special tasting menu. Two-story overwater suites come with a stocked refrigerator and wine cooler, all free to drink.
The all-inclusive approach can also be found closer to home in Canada at Club Med Quebec Charlevoix, where you can do as little or as much as you want, depending on your mood.
If you want to sprinkle in more activity, there's hiking, mountain biking, or skiing, depending on the season, with spectacular vistas about an hour's drive from Quebec City. And an expansive kids program. Doing less at the resort, one of those we stayed at for a special rate, can also mean some quality hot tub time in the exclusive collection space, which offers more luxury amenities, or sitting down for leisurely meals.
Everything is all included. You can do lots of sports if you want to, or truly disconnect.
Club Med rolled out a new campaign last year. That's L'Esprit Libre, loosely translated to true freedom of mind, what more travelers are now seeking. Wendy Gillette, CBS News.
Still ahead at noon, if you like flaky homemade dough stuffed with all sorts of cheesy goodness, then you better stay put because you're not going to want to miss what Mr. Food is making next.